The ANC NEC member, Nomvula Mokonyane, has received the highest number of nominations to become the Deputy Secretary General of the party once it holds its 55th National Elective Conference in December. Mokonyane, who is currently the head of organising, has been a firm favourite, scoring nearly 1,800 nominations. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo is with her to conduct this conversation and what her plans would be, Ziyanda, if she were to become the DSG of the ANC. Perhaps one of the questions to put to her has to do with how she feels about not being nominated by the ANC Women's League. And we heard this information from Batabile Dlamini, who recently led the Women's League, to say their candidate is Phoebe Potgieter.
Absolutely, and we'll hear from Mama Action, as she's popularly known from her time as a Gauteng Premier, how she feels about this. And the question here that Goli was saying, perhaps we should start off asking you, is how you feel about the Women's League not necessarily throwing their weight behind you, and yet when we look at the numbers, you scored almost double those of Phoebe Potgieter.
Morning, Ziyanda, and morning to the viewers. Well, it's the national team of the ANC Women's League. Of course, it's disappointing, but we're living in the very interesting times. However, what is exciting, I remain a member of the ANC Women's League, and I am aware that those who came to me, approaching me to avail myself in the top 6, are active leaders of the ANC Women's League below the NTT.
Yes.
So I'm fine. I think I accept it. It's democracy at play, and I think it is something that, of course, was disappointing, but was not about the ANC Women's League as a body and its members. I enjoy an overwhelming support of ANC Women's League members, as I am a member as well.
Yes. I think one of the critical things that's come out in the lead up to this process is the fact that this is a conference that will have task teams both in the form of the Women's League task team and that of the Youth League. Now, this has a material impact when it comes to the numbers. I mean, the head of the electoral committee, was saying that literally the task team's numbers count as almost as if it's one branch. I mean, don't you think that has an impact as if it's a province? And so don't you think that this may in some ways constitute an unfair balance or weighting going into this conference?
No. Historically, that's a practice. The leagues constitute a province. And the leagues, as we know now, the Women's League and the Youth League, as well as the Veterans League, never went and interacted with my branch. It was national members of the Women's League task team, who then extended and brought in other people from the provinces and then participated in that. Historically, the practice is like this, Ziyanda. You have the leagues issuing a notice to their respective branches and to their respective provinces, and then you convene provincial general councils, where in those councils then members make their proposals, and that gets facilitated. And then thereafter you then have a national meeting of the executive, that includes all provinces, and in that meeting then it is the consolidation. But it's okay, I think we must move on. It's a task team, and I am on record having said it was an unfortunate decision that we took as the NEC. Albeit, of course, the issues of the lapse of the constitutional mandate. I am aware that at that time the Women's League was ready to go to conference, because it was affected by the COVID situation, but they've already started to work on the audits and stuff, which we have supported them on. But we are here now.
Yeah.
I am humbled by the nominations I've received, including that of the Women's League tasked him of putting me as one of the additionals.
Yeah.
We must move on and work post this conference towards building a women's league that is entrenched on the ground.
What is to be said about the fact that every time women are nominated in the ANC, it's usually in the administrative roles, such as DSG? Why couldn't you just be nominated to become president as Nomvula Mokonyane?
Those who approached me, you see, my preference may be different from that comrades approached me for.
What was your preference?
I wouldn't have minded to be a president or an SG, or I can serve if wherever members of the ANC want me to, but I always also reflect on what would work in a particular period. There's also been a distortion to a certain extent of the role of the Deputy Secretary General in the SGO. Sometimes it has to do with the arrogance of those who are the SGs and stuff. It has to do with the interpersonal, being sexist. Some are very tribalist, others chauvinist. But if you have an SG who is progressive, like we've seen with other SGs in the past, the DSG has a very strategic role in the organization. You've seen just now recently without the SG, DSG Jesse Duarte, may her soul rest in peace, was doing a great deal of organizational work, building of relationships with the civil society, ensuring that we've got functioning structures, ensuring that we are visible in terms of campaigns, ensuring that we implement our resolutions and the annual program of action, and overseeing the ANC on a day-to-day basis.
So in no ways are you saying that there's a level of sexism in women only being?
There is a lot of sexism in the ANC, and it's not even sexism, it's patriarchy. Because it is even women sometimes who look down upon other women to an extent where they would even rubbish them. Just yesterday we saw something that says, now Mamuluku is disappointed. Nomvula has approached Mamuluku and persuading Mamuluku to take a particular view. And that was coming from women. And I think the victimization and bashing of other women who stand out independently must not actually be encouraged. Because we become the sharp edge of a knife that is being used by others to destroy women. Up until now, I do not believe that the ANC has done a great deal of work in the emancipation of women. But also, Ziyanda, one of the things that we must look at is women, we don't have to have a space created for us. We are equal to the task. We are capable. We've joined just like them. Others who are senior to them, they may be senior in positions, but they found us in this movement. And some of us also respect the hierarchy of the movement. Over time, I've declined 4 times.
Including in 2012 when the now late Jesse Duarte also.
2012, 2017, in Mahikeng, in Mangaung, I declined. This time I declined being a treasurer the last time.
Why?
I declined because in the midst of the campaign for going to the Nazareth conference in 2017, then there was a consideration of having Comrade Maite to contest Comrade Zweli Mkhize and Paul Mashatile for treasurer. And I knew that Maite was going to lose against Zweli and Paul. And I felt, let me give support to this woman with the little support that I have. And I was vindicated because, again, we were pitted against each other by the same caucus, by the way, the same core. And, you know, some people don't know. I heard about Maite whilst I was on a podium sitting with all of these other comrades I was with in the campaign of Cisco Sazan. But because I'm a Democrat and because this has got nothing to do with me, I just agreed that, okay, fine, you've woken up somewhere, you men, and decided that you must replace me with my dad. And I heard after that, the problem is I can't be controlled. And so it's a story for another day, including on the Women's League, how men imposed the past NEC of the Women's League, including currently how the entity is constituted to serve the interests of men.
I think maybe the other side of that, perhaps there's an argument to be made about your close relationship with former President Jacob Zuma, and some would say maybe to a certain extent you benefited, whether it be even at the time when he nominated you over Paul Mashatile to become Premier on several occasions, even in the lead up to the Nazareth conference, don't you think?
I've supported every president. I was a member of the Central Committee of the Communist Party. I was in hospital and I received a letter signed by Comrade Blade Nzimande that I failed to attend 3 successive Central Committee members. And at that time there was a fight, an anti-Thabo Mbeki campaign of 1996 class project. And Mbazima was our leader here. And with me, I always support and respect the office. I may have views against an individual, but I refuse to be outside and undermine a leader as if tomorrow when it is the one that I support, I would actually take a different turn. So even with JZ, that relationship is a special relationship. So I've been a casualty of becoming organizational. And that's why even with those other situations, people are saying, hey, Nomvula, she's uncontrollable. You can't manage her. So I'm nobody's person. I'm nobody's person. I speak my mind, worse in a meeting and worse with those that we think alike. And I think you are right. Maybe it's too costly under these conditions where patriarchy reigns. I've never been submissive.
Let's talk about what your immediate plans would be if you make it as Deputy Secretary General. The organization arguably would need to beef up its work ahead of the 2024 elections. Straight after this elective conference, one would presume that the real work would begin because of the risk that the ANC, as polls are telling us, of achieving below 50%. What would your role entail?
It's about building a united front of starting with the newly elected NEC. I think one of the challenges that we've had, Nazareth broke the slate, but we never had an opportunity to come together and say, guys, we've been elected, how do we work together? And how do we, with all our differences, because diversity is also a strength, how do we make sure that those issues that have created a strain or different perspectives going into the conference are attended without a perception of being vindictive or those that will want to be perpetual victims. One of the things I will propose is immediately when an NEC is elected, as we normally used to have what is called induction, the NEC itself must be inducted, and we must also go into a session where we unite around what would be the resolutions of the conference.
So you didn't do that after the 2017 Nazareth conference?
No.
Because the president is always talking about unity and renewal. So I'm very shocked that you are saying that you've even said, in fact, you've been quoted as saying that this is the weakest NEC which you form part of. But there's always been talk of unity and renewal. So at what stage then are you saying to me that this has never happened and that's why you're so weak?
It didn't happen. It didn't happen, and hence, a year ago, I'm sure if you follow the NEC's outcomes, there was a decision that we need to go for a retreat. We need a breakaway of the NEC. Unfortunately, that never happened, and it was post the midterm of the NEC. I think it must be something that we do in the beginning. We impose on PECs and RECs. Immediately after a conference, we take them through induction. They go into a session where they look at the program and stuff. But I think what has been missing in the organization is how do you improve interpersonal relationships, especially after a heated contestation. And I think being a DSG and hopefully being elected into that portfolio, I would impress upon the officials that one of our immediate things post-January 8, because that's what normally happens,
yes.
Post-January 8, it's for the NEC to go on a retreat.
Let's talk about who you'd prefer to work with. Just a few days ago, you were seen at the Bertha Glower talk with Dr. Zweli Mkhize, prospective SG Phumulo Maswale, and prospective Treasurer General Mzwandile Masina. Now, when you look at the outcomes of the nominations process, it would seem that the branches are rejecting slate politics, and yet you were one of the firm favorites on the slate of Dr. Zweli Mkhize. Does this mean that you're only willing to work with them?
Actually, I was not favored in the slate of Dr. Zweli Mkhize. The pronouncement was a pronouncement of branches of the ANC. And if you look at my nomination, it cuts across because Zweli Mkhize got lesser than what I got. The invitation came from the branch and the zone in Ekurhuleni, and they invited those that they preferred. And maybe that's the preference of that branch. And you ask me, who would I prefer? I'll prefer to work with anyone who conference elects. I would prefer. As long as comrades are genuine on the issues of unity, as long as comrades are genuine on implementing every resolution without any omission of what can change the lives of the people of South Africa and build a stronger African National Congress that is rooted amongst the people.
I suppose some of the concern going into 2024 would be the issue of you having been implicated by the State Capture Commission report. You've indicated that you're taking that on review, but the recommendation there was that you could possibly face criminal prosecution. Are you concerned that you could possibly face this just before the elective conference?
Look, I'm one of those who supported the establishment of that commission. I appeared voluntarily as they indicated that I may come. I made requests to that commission, and my requests were never met. And then there was an outcome. I'm contesting that outcome because I think there's also an exaggeration of the role of the commission. Just reading on those recommendations that are made, because it's not a court of law. They would have to refer to the authorities. There are other authorities that must look at issues, and it is on the basis of that I'm taking it for review. Because also, I think they have been given powers that exceed what my role is in the ANC and in government. I never related with Bosasa on the basis of government. I've known them before, and now I still know them. Thirdly, I also think the assumption that I'm this influential person, because Wabuzondo said it's on the basis of my influence in the ANC that Bosasa has never been prosecuted, that Bosasa received tenders. My foot, I've never been in any cluster of the criminal justice system where Bosasa got tenders. Secondly, as he has asked for the records of the deployment committee, I would also request the ANC to present records of minutes where, as he alleges in his report, that I have this influence that led to Bosasa being given preferential consideration. It is those things. The thing that I will also refuse, even as I'm taking the report for review, I will never stop doing, is to assist and support communities where I live and in the country.
But the recommendations also said that, or the findings found that, included in those groceries, for an example, where those bribe packs were sent to your home, where we are right now, was that there was an inclusion of liquor and others, which then Justice Zondo said, then surely that could not have been for the communities.
So communities don't drink alcohol. That's what she means. When you have a Christmas party, you don't only drink oros. You've got members of the community who drink. I think it's also a reflection of an over-exaggeration and trying at all costs to put blame on me.
Why you then?
Only him and his team knows. And I'm also interested on how and who actually compiled the report. Because you can see the crafting. as I'm talking to you now, Ziyanda, I'm busy organizing and working for events of the festive season for destitute families. I've got 4 companies that have also approached me to work with them in Kagiso, in Manseville. Some also want to go to some of the communities in Ekurhuleni that are in the mining belt. And will I stop doing that? No, I will not stop. I will continue to do that. If the bribe packs that he's talking about and alcohol doesn't fit our own people, doesn't fit our war veterans, I think Ubabu Zondo seem not to be very sensitive. When you share during the festive season, don't give people that you will not actually yourself appreciate. And that's me. I'm pressed for time, Mamkize, but just lastly, you don't regret your relationship with Gavin Watson? No, and I think it will also be sad for the ANC to regret that relationship. I didn't know what Gavin was doing behind the scenes. And remember, dead men tell no story. How could you not know when there were several reports about the way in which Bosasa was getting contracts? I didn't know what he was doing behind the scenes. People who may know are those accounting officers in those departments. How will I know? Even I'm surprised that even yourself here, Ziyanda, you forget a very important assertion by that man, Akrit, that in all this thing, what irritated him was that they never benefited from me. Why don't you remember that? Many people have forgotten that. Even Yanubabu Zondo has forgotten that. That Agriti admitted that he's a racist. He did. And confessed for that. Agriti confessed that he always complained to Kevin that I know you have a relationship with Nomvula, but there's no benefit out of this relationship. So who's fooling who? Let's leave it on that note. Who is fooling who? Well, that's Nomvula Mokonyane. She's running to become the Deputy Secretary General as it stands. She's got the highest number of votes when it comes to the branch nominations, which were announced earlier this week. We'll see then what the branches will say come the 55th National Conference in just under 3 weeks to come.